Fighting Sail, Fleet Actions, 1775 to 1815 by Ryan Miller. Let's go to the shipyard. Thought it might be nice. We've been doing a lot of fantasy, a lot of sci-fi here in the House of Wargaming. Let's throw a little historical game on the table. What do you say? We're going to the high seas. We're going to the Caribbean, where a small American fleet consisting of the USS Chad, a fifth-rated flagship, supported by three sixth-rate, what would you call it? It's a squadron of sixth-rate vessels. This is the USS Chad as the flagship, and then we've got the USS Man, the Myth, and the Legend as our sixth-rate. They don't have any special abilities, except that our admiral here on the USS Chad came up through the fleet. He was a frigate captain. So these guys, when they fire as a squadron, they use the nearest vessel, not the furthest. They are trying to chase off the two Mexican ships. This is the Cheech, and then this is a captured Canadian flag vessel that they've pressed into the Spanish service. This is the Chong. The Cheech is a third-rate vessel. The Chong is a fifth-rate vessel. They are both swashbucklers. If they can board one of these ships, then they get to reroll all of their ones. Let's go look at the table now, shall we? We have a fairly simple table setup, a couple of islands, a light shoal. If you pass through the shoal, you have to make a sailing test, otherwise you run aground, which is bad news bears. I've got two dice. We're going to use the red die for the black ships and the blue die for the white ships. The red are the Spaniards, and we're rolling for initiative. The Spanish get the initiative, and then wind is coming out of the north. Having initiative means the Spaniards get to decide which side they want, and they have to place the first ship. Look at those grand old ladies of the sea. Over here on the left, the Americans have put their squadron of sixth-rate vessels. They are running, what is it called? It's called close hauled, kind of into the wind just a little bit. They've got a lot more maneuverability, so they think they're going to be able to race around this island, and confrontation is probably going to happen more right here. Flagship is going to swing around through the south and try to, catch them at a broadside that way. For the Spaniards, they need to protect the flagship. If you lose your flagship, if it's sunk, you just lost the game. Otherwise, you lose, like I said, these are both 90-point forces, and once you lose 9 points, and I'll show you how points are lost here in a little bit, you strike the colors, and you basically have lost the fight. So for the Spanish, they are putting their flagship in the back, and they're going to lead with the ship that they can afford to lose more, right? So third rate, and then their, what did I say it was, fifth rate ship? The Cheech is in the back, and the Chong is in the front. And then, of course, we've got the Chad and the Man, the Myth, and the Legend. Now, the Man, the Myth, and the Legend all have the same profile, so it doesn't really matter, but we give them names so they have a little bit of character. The other thing I should point out, and here's our little measurement gauge, is that today, thanks to the help of our good friend, Mr. Jim Alzarski, he runs a channel over and he does a lot of tabletop sim, miniature wargaming. He pointed out that there is a new and revised reference sheet that changed some of the things, and so we're going to be using these today. If you have this wonderful little rule set, I'm a fan of Fighting Sail, accessible miniature war games. You can throw down on the table. Doesn't take you 2 years to put the project together. Binding maybe is not great, but this is a beloved book that has seen a lot of use. And so if the rules look a little different from what you're used to, it may be because I'm using the revised reference sheet and you are not. One last thing before we get started, let me apologize for the extra noise. We are bird sitting a couple of really loud parrots, so it's going to be probably worse than usual today. We're going to start with the Chong, since that is in the lead. He has a sailing of 5. So we're going to roll 5 dice, and because he is running, so the way this works, I'm not going to go through this every turn, but for right now, you put your gauge down, and as I said, the wind is coming out of the north. As you can see, the wind is striking the center mast. He is close hauled. So for every 5 or 6, he will get a sailing point. He gets 1 sailing point, and for each sailing point, you can move 2 inches. So we put our measurement gauge down. He's going to go straight. And then after every time you move, you can turn up to 30 degrees. So he's going to do that. He will still be close hauled, but he is just a little bit closer to making his way around the island. This guy is also close hauled, and he is going to roll, and he's going to get, oh, wouldn't you know it. Now we are in a bit of a hurry, so we are going to go ahead and just take advantage of the extra little bit of movement. We'll put our turn gauge down, and he is also going to. So they are side by side, just trying to hook around the corner here. Now the Americans get to go, and each side moves its entire fleet. I'm going to move this ship up and swing him around. This guy, again, we're going to try to get as close to the table edge as possible before we swing south and shoot to the northeast of this island right here. So I'm just going to roll for points and move them all as best I can. And because, again, they are close-hauled, here's what our little turn gauge looks like. They will be moving on 5s. So the first guy gets 3 points. The second guy gets 2 points. And the third gets... So 3, 2, and 3 is basically double that. They can move 2 inches. This little turn template is 2 inches. Now, for those of you familiar with the rule set, I know my ships are much closer to the table edge than they should be. I'm playing in a very small table. You're supposed to use 4x4 if you believe Mr. Miller. Since I am using a 2x3 table, I just cheat and get guys closer to the edge. So I'm going to move this guy up 6, 4, and 6 inches, and that will be it for their turn. And I have this really cool measuring gauge that works for just about any game. So this guy will move up 6, this guy will move up 6, and we'll just save a little bit of time by bringing them up. A little something like that. So starting to fall away from each other, but that's all right. We do have to move this guy here. He has a sailing ability of 6, but because he is running, well, this is what the template looks like for, no, the wind is coming off of his port side, so we use the same little template. But as you can see, because the wind is striking him a little bit off the aft, that means he is going to be scoring a sailing point on for every 4 that he rolls. These come from Litco, by the way. He only rolls 6 dice, but he's hitting on 4s, and he gets a total of 4 successes, so he's going to be able to cruise down up to 8 inches. You don't have to move the entire distance if you don't want to. So spread out a little bit here, but for those of you that haven't seen the game, your range is up to about 12 inches, so they are still kind of covering each other. But man, they better make that turn and coordinate or they're going to be in trouble. Before we flip the page to turn number 2, we need to roll for initiative. And once again, the blue dice are for the Americans. On this one, the Spanish will once again get to go first. Or have to, as the case may be. In the event of a tie, the guy with initiative switches and the weather changes. That didn't happen here. As you can see, they are still running just slightly close hauled. So 5 dice for the first. That's this guy. And 3 dice for the Cheech. He gets a total of 1 sailing point. So we'll swing him up 2 inches for the first point. And then we'll swing him up another 2 inches. And we're going to go ahead and swing around. So we are now going to be running at reaching. With just 1 sailing point, our flagship is going to move up. And then he is also going to fall in line. See how we're maneuvering just like in the real world. The Americans are so spread out, they're making things a little bit awkward. Typical Americans. I'm going to start with the flagship this time. I want to know where he's going so I know where to bring those frigates. And as you can see, as with last turn, he is reaching, so he's hitting on 4s. He's going to be able to move a full 10 inches. And I don't know if maybe we do want to do that. Maybe we'll go ahead. So the problem here is, let's take advantage of the fact that we don't want to get too far downwind because it's going to be hard to cut back up and get into the fight. So I'm going to use 3 of those points to move. I don't know. I'm only going to move 4 to move to there. And then I can move up to 30 degrees. So I'm going to stay just a little bit reaching. And then I'm going to use the other 6 points to sail to right about there. I don't want to get too far downwind because we're going to have to start swinging back up around. Now we can think about these 3 ships over here, and we're going to need to start with the guy in the front. As usual, they are going to get sailing points on 5s, and the guy in front now is going to start making his turn around the island, and we're going to go just like that. So his line is taking him right past the island. He should clear it without any problems. The guy up here is the guy we have to take a look at next. He gets a total of 2 sailing points. So he's got to move up the 2 inches, and yeah, then he's going to make his, whoops, kind of bumped it a little bit there. And then he's going to make his turn to the south. A little bit off a different line. He's kind of hugging the edge of the board, and this last guy hitting on 5s is 1, 2, 3, 4. So now we get to do a little bit of fun. We're going to move up 2, and then we'll move up another 2. We'll split the difference, and from there we are in great position to just move up that last 4 inches. A little something like that. And what'll be fun is, as they make their turn to the south, you'll be able to appreciate how hard it is to stay in line of battle, and how we really want this guy to make his turn first so that these guys can kind of stay lined up. But that's for another turn. As you can see, for now, we are not within our 12 inches of range, so there will be no cannon fire. We need to check for initiative on turn number 3. And this time, the Americans have the initiative. And this is where we play a little bit of gamesmanship. Once again, we are just barely off the 90-degree angle. And the way I have to think about this is this line, if it's at 90 degrees to that table edge, if I have to turn it a little bit this way, we're reaching. If I have to turn it a little bit that way, I'm close-hauled. And then what if it's right on the line? I just don't do that. It's kind of hard to remember sometimes. So I declare, if you're playing this with 2 players, just declare your intention. Look, I want to stay just reaching because on this turn, I'm rolling my 6 dice, I'm hitting on 4s, and I am going to try to get as many sailing points as possible to get as far upwind as I can. And that really is just a function of, guys, I'm really trying to use my momentum to my advantage. So we move our 2 inches, we move the 30 degrees, we move another 2 inches, and I think we need to stay there. Our firing arc to the front looks, oh, this is our firing arc right here. So if I draw a line right there, that's where the Spaniards have to be careful, because that's where they will be entering this ship's firing arc. But we still have 3 more ships to move. Let me just go ahead and roll the dice and get those guys moved, and then we'll look at what the Spanish are going to respond. No, I want to show you guys how this looks and how it works. We are still hitting on 4s. Our lead ship, I probably should have declared that earlier, he's going to get 3 sailing points, so he is going to take advantage. He's going to kind of stay behind. There's 1 sailing point. 2 sailing points, and then his 3rd sailing point, will see him right there. And we're going to turn, like I said, we really want to catch these guys in some kind of a crossfire. Our next ship is also hitting on 4s. We get a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hits altogether. He can move up to 10 inches, and we move 2 inches at a pop. So we'll move to here and turn, and then we're going to move to here. That's 2, 3, 4, and we're going to stop him right there. So he kills his momentum, and now we've got it. Well, actually, we've got enough sailing points. We're going to bring him up just a little bit further, because we want to catch these guys in as many different arcs as we can. We've got them crossed. We've crossed the T. We're going to fire a raking shot, but of course, the enemy gets a vote as well. We get a total of 4 sailing points for this guy. He will move up 1 and turn. He will move a second 1. That's 2. 3, and then he's going to turn just slightly like that to make sure that these 2 boats are in his firing arc, or at least force them to take some kind of evasive maneuvers. Now they're going to be rolling, again, the guy in the lead is rolling 5 dice for these Spanish vessels. And they are going to be hitting on 4s. He'll get 1 sailing point each. So the guy in the lead gets a total of 3 sailing points. By the way, I think I might have... You can turn more than this 30 degrees. If you want to turn up to 90 degrees, you can turn up to 90 degrees if you're turning with the wind. If you want to go up into the wind, that costs 2 sailing points. We're not doing that just yet. So we got our 3 sailing points. So we're going to go 1, and we're going to turn. We're going to go 2, and we're going to turn into the wind. And then we're going to go 3. And the reason he's turning like this is he really wants to take out a couple of these guys. Meanwhile, his flagship is going to cover him by getting 3 sailing points of his own. And you can see the difference it makes between reaching and running. And he is going to focus on, we're going to have a little flagship duel here. 1, 2, and then we'll keep him, he's just going to run right at him, just like that. So now we're done with the movement on turn number 3. We need to do some cannon fire. Long range is 18 inches. I'll be darned. I guess these 2 fleets were saving their powder. Actually, come to think of it, I don't think anybody had a shot because of the fire arcs. Once again, we drop our fire arc down. Looks a little something like this. And if we trace a straight line, this guy probably should have stopped a little bit back. But of course, that also puts the USS Chad square into his broadside firing arc as well. The Chad is going to fire first. In fact, the Americans do all of their shooting first with a gunnery skill of 5, targeting this guy. And because we're at medium range, we will hit on 5s or better. And with no chance of a critical hit. So he gets 2 hits. And then the flagship now is going to have to make a hull check. The flagship has a hull of 7. So we add a couple of dice. And for every 5 or better, we cancel a hit. So he cancels out 1, 2 hits, and he takes no damage. Then we have 3 brigs. This is a squadron of 3 frigates who are going to combine their gunnery skill. They've got 9 dice. And here's how you check to see if you're in a raking shot or not. This mast is definitely, and this one is pretty close. Let me just check the line of sight from the table edge. Yep. So all 3 of these vessels are in the front arc of the flagship. We are going to fire a grand total of 9 dice at the Cheech. And we use the nearest. Remember the special ability that our Admiral has here. We use the range of the nearest vessel. Normally you would use basically the worst. So if we put our ruler down, we check our distance. We are just beyond 6 inches, which puts us at medium range. We are hitting on 5s. If the firing arc is in the... if the firing arc is in the bow or stern, within 6 inches. So, it's just normal critical hits, I guess. Okay. Using these new rules, it's a little bit harder to do this. We're hitting on 5s. We get a grand total of 4 of those. And as I said, that vessel now gets to roll 7 dice. He took 4 hits, and he's going to cancel out 2 of those, meaning he still took 2 hits, and that means he takes, is it no effect? Is that right? Oh, no, we have a damage deck. He had 2 unsaved hits, so we roll. No, it's all coming back to me. With 2 hits, that vessel is now shaken. It gets an anchor token. When it sails, it's going to only get sailing points on a 6, so he's kind of like dead in the water. I guess they shot away one of the masts. That's it for the Americans. A little bit ineffective. Now our flagship is going to fire back. I should say the Spanish flagship, and they have a gunnery of 9 dice versus a hull of just 3 for the Chad. So 9 dice, same rules apply. We are hitting on 5s. He gets a total of 1 hit. With a hull value of just 3, the American flagship saves the 1, and there's no damage. I guess you really want to get in tight, don't you? Then we're going to try with the Chong to hit this vessel here. The Chong is, now let's see if we get that close range shot, shall we? Here's 6 inches. Measure from mast to mast. It's pretty tight. I think we're just outside the 6. That's all right. We've got a gunnery skill of 5. Hitting on 5s, we get a pair of them, and this little ship only gets 1 save. He saves the 1, and with 1 unsaved hit, he also gets an anchor token, and that is going to be the end of the turn. Let's roll for initiative. And with a 6, this time the Spanish get to move first, but they also get to shoot first. We will start with the Cheech. Rolling 3 dice, we only get a sailing point on a result of a 6. He does not get any sailing points. He does not get to move, but he does get to make a discipline check. And the Cheech has pretty good discipline. He's going to roll a total of 7 dice, and if he gets a single 6, the anchor token goes bye-bye. So it does. That's all he can do. Normally, if you don't get any sailing points, you get a free sailing point. It's a minimum of 1, unless you're sailing directly into the wind in irons, or you have that anchor token. Now we're going to try to bring this guy around behind the squadron there. He's going to roll 5 dice, and he is going to get a sailing point for every 5 he gets. He only gets 1. So he's going to have to move his 2 inches to start. We got to slide our weather gauge out of the way. So he's going to move his 2 inches. And he's going to move, now because he's turning with the wind, he can turn up to 90 degrees. And we're just going to stop him right there, because that does put a couple of ships in his firing arc. Although, honestly, no, I think that's good for now. He can't take another shot at this guy, but that's fine. Is it fine? Is it fine? Is it fine? Do we want to stay close? No, we want to come so that on the next turn we're getting those sailing points on a 4. Even if it means we're less likely to get a shot at these guys, we're still going to be able to take some long-range shots at the American flagship. Speaking of, we have to roll some dice to see how many points he gets. He is only going to be getting points on a 5. He gets a grand total of 2 sailing points. And now he's in trouble because the new rules, and I didn't realize this was the case, as soon as you turn into the wind, you get an anchor token. That being the case, we'll go ahead and move up this way. And when I say into the wind, as soon as we are in irons, which would happen, we're gonna move up just another 2 inches, and then we're gonna turn, and so he is now in irons, and we can't spend any more sailing points. But I think we're in a pretty good position for the alternative, mind you, is to spend the 90 and come swinging around this way. But this is why the weather gauge is so important. Your maneuvering is so limited. We still have to move our boys with our 7 sailing points. So let's grab our turn gauge. We'll take a look over here. We will start with the guy in the lead is going to roll, and he's hitting on 4, so he gets a total of 4 sailing points. And man, just look how maneuverable this stunty little fella is. He's going to go 2. And now because he's turning into the wind, unless we want to turn 90 degrees, one thing we could do is we could put him between our flagships. He's going to take the shot, but it does protect our flagship. That's 2, and then let's go ahead and bring him up to right about there, I think. Our second ship is going to hug the coastline. He's hitting on 4s. He only gets 1 sailing point, so we're just going to bring him to there. And then our third vessel, he is only going to get sailing points on a 6. He gets a grand total of 2 of them. So we'll go ahead and move him the 2 inches to here, and he will slide up the 2 inches to there. Just narrowly missing his pal, and he gets to make a discipline check. Not nearly as well disciplined for these guys. He has to roll, or gets to roll, I should say, just 5. Looking for a 6. He gets it. The anchor token is gone. And the good news is we are still able to combine fire on this ship, but our flagship now does not have a valid target. To make matters worse, our flagship is the American flagship he's not quite raking. All right, so we got that going for us. Because remember, because they moved first, the Spanish get to shoot first, meaning the Cheech is going to open fire first with all 9 of his gunnery dice. 3, 6, 9. And let's check our range. He wants to take out the big boy. Well, does he? No, this vessel is within 6 inches. We're going to go for the high probability shot. And we are going to be hitting on 4s. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hits. Let's see how many of those we can block. With a 6, none. 5 hits on our damage chart is heavy damage. The ship gets 3 additional damage tokens, unless it already has one. Now, because we did 3 damage on that shot, the morale clock for the Americans goes from 9 to 6. So I have these lovely little spoons. We got 1, 2, I need a third one, don't I? 3 damage tokens, which will effectively take this guy pretty much out of the fight, as we'll see in subsequent turns. Starting now, his gunnery and his boarding are halved. He is crippled. This guy still has to take a shot, and he is going to open fire on. Well, let's check our firing arcs first with our measuring tool. So we measure mast to mast. He could fire at this vessel, but I think we want to. What do you think? Should we go ahead and just try to sink this ship while we can. Let's see what the range is there. He is within 12 of both. And what are we rolling here? We're rolling a gunnery skill of 5. Yeah, let's just try to sink this guy. We can do another point of damage. And hitting on 5s at this range is going to see us do just 1 hit, but he needs a 6. And he doesn't get it. So Disrupted gets an anchor token unless he already has one. Well, so that didn't do much good. But it's time now for the Americans to fire back. This crippled vessel normally has a gunnery skill of 3. Cut that in half to 1. We are going to be able to take a shot with 7 dice altogether at close range, hitting on 5s. And I think I forgot a couple of critical hits. He might have actually taken enough to sink him. Because if you are at close range, every 6 you roll, you re-roll. And if you get another hit, you add that to the total. Not going to worry about it. All 7 of these frigates have rolled a grand total of 0 hits, which means it's up to him. And as we said, the USS Chad does not have anyone in his firing arc, which means we have to roll for initiative. The Americans get the initiative. They get to move first. Let's go ahead and start with our crippled ship. He's in irons, and so is he. But we'll get to that. The man, the myth, I think this is the legend, is going to have to roll 7 sailing dice to see how many sailing points he gets. And he only gets them on a 6. So he gets 2 sailing dice. He can kind of scooch out of the way, and we'll do that. And then once he's done, so the 4 inches will take him to right here, just past the boss man. Oh boy, we may need to turn. Yeah, we're going to turn just a little bit as well. And then we get to make a discipline check to see if we can remove the anchor token. These guys have a discipline of 5. We're looking for a 6. And the way this works, so trying to repair the damage, we get rid of the anchor token. Moving forward, we can start to pull off these damage tokens. Same thing. We'll make discipline checks after movement, and for every 6 we roll, we pull off some damage. The Carpenters are hard at work there. Then we're going to roll for sailing dice for our flagship. That means we are only going to be rolling 6 dice in this case. And hitting on 6s, he is in irons, but he does get the 1 point. So that we got that going for us, as we like to say. But he is still in irons. And I think that's how this worked. No, but he doesn't get the anchor token because he did manage to move just a little bit. And I think we really need to try to turn that 30 degrees. Does that look about right? Maybe a little bit less, because we got to get circle back around this way. In the meantime, we have 2 more ships that are going to be rolling 7 dice. That's these guys, and they hit on 4s. So he's going to move 4 inches altogether, and if we want to turn into the wind, it costs us an extra 1. So I guess we don't. We'll bring up to here, and then we'll do the same. We'll bring up to here. So unfortunately, not in great position for the Americans. I think this game does the movement on this is a little bit wibbly. It's a little bit zigzaggy, maybe a little cartoonish, but fundamentally, because you're starting each turn in that situation, so we get 1, 2, 3, 4 total for this guy. Because at the start of the turn, you have to deal with where you're at with respect to the wind. I think it works. I think it's a fine method of, and we're just going to bring him up just a little bit more in a straight line to there, and maybe turn him. So he's hitting on 5s next turn. This guy will be hitting on 4s, just to make it clear where we're at. Then the Spanish get to go, and they are hitting on 4s in both cases. Let's find out where the smaller vessel lands first, and we'll plan our flagship around that. The smaller vessel is hitting on 4s, and he needs to now start to think about, well, I want to make sure these guys are really in range and in my firing arc, so we'll stop there. And then our big guy is hitting on 4s, and he gets a total of 3. Wow, really flexible. The Spaniards are really putting on a clinic. Remember, he can turn up to 90 degrees because the wind is pushing on that quarter. And doing that means he can sail up an additional 4 inches, and we'll go 12, 10, 9, 8 to there. And that puts him, now he is not, this puts him right where he wants to be. Because if we check our firing arcs, yeah, he's in the arc, but check this out. Does this little guy get a raking shot? If we slide this forward to the front of to the bow of the vessel, he does not. On the other hand, he is square within raking distance of this guy. So the Americans do get to go first. The Americans move first. They get to shoot first. Our flagship is going to take the assist from this frigate. Of course, he's kind of blocking, so and he's not in the range. So we just get the 8 dice for having the assist of the frigate with our flagship. And we're at close range. So we do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hits. And then because we got 3 criticals, we get to roll, and we do a total of 6 hits. All right, we get a little shot here with this guy. That is a raking shot, so take that for what it's worth. We're just going to fire 3 dice, and for every... We're hitting on 3s. So we get 2 hits, and for every 5 or 6, we can add 1. So that's 2, 3... I'm sorry, there's 3, 4. So we got a total of 4 hits. And with a massive hull of 7, trying to block those 4 hits. Blocking them on, I think it's on a 5 or a 6, isn't it? Blocking on a 5 or a 6. So we block out 1, 2, 3, 4 dice, 4 of the 4 hits. No effect there. But we do have the big guy is going to take his shot. The USS Chad has got a gunnery of 5. He is a 4th-rate ship, remember, not a whole lot of iron. He is close enough to hit 1, 2, 3, 4 times, plus he gets the exploding die, which is going to miss, so just 4 hits. And again, rolling 7 dice, canceling hits. We cancel 1, 2 of them altogether. 2 hits means he goes in anchors, and man, we really needed to do 1 point. This is not looking good for the Yanks, because now he... Oh boy, what do we want to do? He's got a gunnery skill of 9. Do we take out the flagship? Or do we take out this guy? Well, let's fire with this ship first. He clearly is within 12 inches, and he's going to roll his gunnery. The Chong is going to roll 5 dice, and he's only hitting on 5s, so he misses altogether. And now we have to decide, do we want to completely obliterate this vessel? Because I think we will. If we roll 9 dice, he's only going to block 1 of them, and that would be... Yeah, let's do that. That's really the smart play here, because we're going to do a ton of damage, and we're going to score a lot of those morale points. We are hitting on 3s. I don't think it is a raking shot. Did we establish that? The raking shot is here. It's off the bow. Oh, it is a raking shot. Look at that. It's off the bow of the vessel, not the base of the miniature. So we're hitting on 3s, critting on 5s. That's a total of 6. Oh boy, that's a total of 8 hits, plus we get to roll a couple of more dice. So 8, 9 hits altogether, of which we block none, and this vessel goes down. Here's where I have a little bit of a question. You take, your morale clock goes down by 1 for every point of damage you took. This little frigate took 4 damage. That reduces the morale clock to 2. However, you also lose when a ship is sunk, you lose morale equal to the hull of the ship. For 1 more, the Americans are barely hanging on with just 1 morale point left. I think that you still count the damage plus the hull when a ship goes down. So a total of 5 leaves the Americans with just 1 point left, and they don't have any more shots to take, so we move on to the next turn. And the Americans get to move first this time. So we'll try to move our crippled ship first. His sailing is still 7, and he's still hitting on 4s, but he's moving out of the area. 1, 2, 3, 4. He's going to be able to move 8 inches, and he did lose that. He did lose that anchor token, so we'll bring him kind of out of the way, and then we have to make a discipline check for him. And what did we say his discipline was? We said his discipline was 5. It's not too bad. Not bad. So of the 3 damage token he's got, he's going to lose absolutely none of them. He's still hurting. I think he might be completely gone. Then we are going to try to move our flagship. He is not... Is he still in irons? Let's check. Is he still only getting movement on 6s? Yes, he is. So he rolls his 6 sailing dice, hoping for at least 1 6. And he gets it. Remember, you don't get any free movement. Oh boy, so we want to try to sneak our way around this wreckage here. And then we'll kind of turn that way a little bit. There's still a chance. So what you're saying is there's a chance. And we have one last little frigate left to move, and he is going to move. The brigs, by the way, can combine fire with any vessels, but the little frigates, they cannot. He is still hitting on 4s. This is the USS Man. Unfortunately, the myth and the legend are out of the fight. He's going to be able to move a total of 10. And so we're going to get, this may seem a little chintzy, but we're going to go ahead and we're going to spend 1 point. And then we're going to spend another point to turn 90 degrees. So that's 2. We'll move, we got to go that way. We're going to go 3. And then we're going to, 3, 4, and we'll turn with the wind, and then we'll come back around this way for our 5th and wind up like that. So a little bit of fancy maneuvering. This is what I was talking about with being really, really wiggly. Unfortunately, in order to be in the position to fire at this vessel, this ship will begin in... Oh, no, you know what? If he turns in irons, he has to stop right there. So that being the case, we're just going to stop him like, I guess, oh boy, yeah, I guess we have to just keep moving up. We got to try to get out of range of, we don't want to be in that short range, do we? And then we'll turn like, and we're going to leave ourselves something like that. So we will stay close hauled, and we're kind of out of the fight, but at least we're on a line where we're not going to run into the shoal. And this shoal here is the entire base, not just the little painted shoal that's on there. Now it's time for the Spaniards to go, and man, are they in the catbird seat. They get to make their choice about how they want to set things up. They are both, well, one of them has an anchor token. So even though the wind is directly off his stern, the Cheech is only going to be moving on 6s. He doesn't get any free ones. He has to make his discipline check of 7 dice, looking for a single 6. So the anchor's gone, but he didn't get to move this turn. Hey, can you help me out here, guy? Now, that guy can help out. He is running. He's going to be scoring movement on 4s or better. He gets a total of 3 of them, and we have to move the 2 inches forward first. We only get to move the 30 degrees, so that's 1, get to 2, and then I think, do we wait right there? I'm going to come up just a little bit further. So we're still in line of sight of this guy, and unfortunately, he didn't move far. Yeah, we got out of the raking position, but there will be some pretty heavy cannon fire here. The Americans now do not have a shot with the USS Man. The flagship does have a shot. It is not a raking shot. If you put the template down here, you can see a raking shot would be striking him from within that arc. So 5 dice, close range, hitting on low numbers. Hitting on 4s, re-rolling 6s. So we get 2 hits off the first one, and then we get a total of 2 hits. Rolling our hull of 7, and there's a huge jump in ability between your 5th-rate ships and your 3rd-rate ships, ain't there? We negate one of those, he draws another anchor token, but you can see you just need to throw an enormous amount of iron, and that's all the Americans are going to be able to do. Meaning the flagship here is going to be able to fire at the last of the U.S. frigates. He is rolling a total of 9 dice, and are we in? We're not raking. We have not crossed the T, so to speak, but we are within 6 inches, meaning we will be hitting on 4s and re-rolling 6s. So we get a total of 4 hits off the top, and we have 2 6s that will add to the damage. So a total of 6 hits altogether on a vessel that only can save one of them, and that vessel also goes down. Glub glub, and that is the last of the American morale. You sank my 6th-rate ship. A pair of them, actually. All right, let's do a little bit of an analysis. One of the things I really like about fighting sail, let's get that book over here, shall we? It's how efficient it is. You know, I drew up this battle in like 10 minutes, put together a 4-on-3, 90 on 90, not a huge fight, But what's curious is the smaller vessels take longer. You would, in most games, smaller, weaker troops will, they'll die. And of course, our frigates were sank pretty quick. But it's not a question of how big the vessel is. It's just a question of whether you're going to roll a lot of sailing dice or a lot of shooting dice. The number of vessels has way more effect on how long it takes you to play a game. But it is an efficient game. We played a little 90-point fight, and what are we up to? Probably about an hour video by the time I get it all edited together. If you want to play with some buddies, 2-on-2, everybody gets 2 ships. You're all going to be moving at the same time and shooting your guns at pretty much the same time. You could easily kill an afternoon with this game, and it's, like $20? I got my figures from tumblingdice.co.uk. These are the Napoleonic vessels. You can buy entire squadrons for pretty cheap. And with just a blue mat is all you need to play. The cardboard. This is some of the most efficient fun you're ever going to find. Really big fan of these sailing games, at least this one. I have a couple more in the hopper for 2023 that I'm hoping to get to when things settle down a little bit on the work and home front. Ha, 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 ha. Don't you just love somebody's naive optimism? Hey, it could happen. So, great game. Really enjoyed it. Hope you guys did. The other thing I like is that there's really 2 phases to the game. There's like a nice, slow, sedate, kind of like feeling each other out, like boxers in a ring. And then you get stuck in, and it's just heavyweights, just throwing fists of iron and steel, just blasting at each other until finally somebody limps away. And so kind of a nice break that it's not the same thing over and over for every single turn. There really are kind of 2 different phases of the game. What a pleasant time. I had a pleasant time sharing it with you. I hope you guys had a pleasant time watching. And remember, just this reminder that here on the House of Wargaming, we play both kinds of miniature war games. Fantasy, which includes science fiction, and historical, which just includes a lot of fiction, don't it? Hey, this was a fictional scenario, but it could have happened, and it was a lot of fun. Till next time, I'm praying for you.